All right. Welcome, everyone. All right. I don't see anyone in the waiting room, but we have to begin. This is extra class, human and social biology. So today we're looking at the effects of light and chlorophyll on the production of starch. All right. The previous class we talked about photosynthesis and the production of the glucose. But we want to know what are the effects. All right. I see someone in the waiting room. Hello, Khalil. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Sir.
How you doing?
Good, sir.
All right.
Sir. They're not on.
They're not on. They're not on. You're the first person here. So what we're gonna talk about today is the production of. Right. So do you have a notebook?
But sir, I was doing the 2 cycles today, sir.
Right. Nitrogen and carbon cycle. Correct.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. Right. So in the previous class, though, we talked about it. We talked previously on the nitrogen cycle. So tell me what you remember about the nitrogen cycle.
What did you say, sir?
Right. Tell me what you remember about the nitrogen cycle. We talked about it briefly last week. All right. Let me give you a moment.
Sir, remember that nitrogen is an essential element in all proteins, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that nitrogen makes up 78% of the atmosphere.
Right. Welcome, Cameron.
Hi, sir.
How you doing?
Yeah, thank you, sir.
All right. You're senior 3, correct? So you would be at a different pace. Where are you in human and social biology?
Sir, I've only had one proper class, and we did, I think, food chain in it, sir.
Food chain. Okay. All right.
I think that's the last one we did.
So do you remember anything about the nitrogen cycle and the carbon cycle?
I don't think I heard. I just remember saying, like, it goes in a chain. It starts from the sun. It goes to the grass, which is the producer, and then consumers and the different types of animals like herbivores, carnivores, omnivores,
Okay.
and all that.
Right. All right. So so I want the final note on, because this class was really to start the food chain and food web, but I was just asking a question about the cycles, because before you go into the cycle of animals and plants, there's another cycle that's inside the plant with respect to what happens when animals die in front of a plant. Where does that nutrient go, right? And how does the plant benefit from that? So those two can be categorized into nitrogen cycle and carbon cycle. And that's what we're going through today. So before we talk about which animal likes to eat which one, you need to understand how the plant in his or her, not being gender biased, but that plant, how does it benefit when the animals around it die? Or how does it gain nutrients from the animals? Because it couldn't just be a producer and not gain anything from the transaction.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what we're talking about today. So head up for me. Nitrogen and carbon cycle. All right. Okay. And Khalil was just mentioning, so it's kind of cool that you guys are both on the same pace, really, because the topic that you should have understood, that's what he's understanding. So we're on the same pace. Okay. So nitrogen and carbon cycle. Okay. You know the product of photosynthesis, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right, glucose and.
Well, I don't know that, sir.
All right.
I just know that it provides food for the plants.
All right. So let's take some notes together. So what I'm gonna do, because I pre-recorded my class, I'm gonna give you a 5-minute video that I've talked about previously on photosynthesis. And what I'm teaching Khalil, you're just gonna get yourself accommodated with what we're going to talk about. So just watch the 5-minute video I made, and you'll be up to speed. Okay.
All right, sir.
All right. So let me share my screen. 1 moment. Let me give permission. All right. There we go. Okay. Okay. Now let me share my screen. Okay. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. It's loading up. So, what you're gonna do for me, I'm gonna send you the link right now. You're gonna quickly go back up to speed. Here's the link. Copy link address. This is the playlist for every class that's recorded. You're gonna go on to photosynthesis and just skip through the video on where exactly you don't remember you were, and you just get up to speed to where we're going to go at now. All right, here we go. So there's your playlist. All right, so Khalil, are you ready, sir? So nitrogen cycle, you were on the nail when you said it was 78% in the air, right? You also were on the nail when you talk about essential protein in animals that plants need, right? But now let's concretize what you were trying to hint at. So I'm not sure if you have this, but the real background to the nitrogen cycle. Let me head that up. The nitrogen cycle, right, is that, let me tell you which page it's on. If you have the textbook, it's on page 50, right? The plant benefits. On your YouTube channel, why are the comments disabled, sir? Right, because it's not a case where you are to interact with the page itself. You're only to interact with the video, right? Okay. So the plant benefits from animals, right? From when animals do their activities, such as excretion, animal excretion. My bad, excretion. All right. Give me an example of an excretion that animals typically do. All right. Let's say urinate and defecate. All right. The plant benefits from this. Okay. Now, Khalil, I told you last week that when a farmer is making his produce, he uses a word called M to make the plant grow faster. What was it? Do you remember? You should have written it down. Is it carbon dioxide? No. You're right. Carbon dioxide is used by the plant, but we're saying the farmer uses some substance to make that plant grow. Right, manure, right, manure and fertilizer, but specifically manure, because the manure contains nitrates that the plants can use to grow. Okay. All right, so let's take some notes quickly. So you're gonna write this for me, okay? Animals, including humans. Let me zoom in a little bit more for you. Animals, including humans, take in nitrogen in proteins either from plants or other animals. Let me zoom out a little bit. Animals. Okay? The nitrogen, so here's the process now. So you're going to say process. The nitrogen is converted to animal protein, which is eventually broken down into something called the urea. Have you ever heard of that word before, Khalil? Urea. All right, so let's define the word urea. What word does it look similar to?
Urine.
Right. So we can then say urea is found in urine right? Okay, and this substance that is found in urine, bacteria breaks down to form nitrate ions. So highlight the word nitrate ions. Right, so let's go through the steps. The process is that nitrogen is converted to animal protein, right, which is eventually broken down into something called urea when they excrete, right? Let's put that through animal excretion, right? Urea is found in urine, and then bacteria breaks down this urea to form nitrate ions. But let me ask you a question, Khalil. Where is the bacteria found? Right? So I told you that when animals die, they get sent to the ground, unfortunately, and something breaks them down. What did we say break them down?
Decomposer.
Right. So decomposers are the bacteria that transform the nitrogen into usable nitrate ions. There we go. Right. And to summarize, now what did I say plants need? Nitrogen or nitrate ions?
Nitrate.
Right. Okay, good. So we're finished with the process. So let's go. Oh, let me I mean, not probably still finish. Okay. All right. So the next topic we're going under, how do plants use nitrate ions? How do they actually use it? Okay. Okay. Nitrate, as mentioned before, is essential. When something is essential for you to live, like when you drink water, you can classify water as a mineral, right? So in the case of a plant, when that nitrate is essential for the plant, that is essentially a mineral. Okay, so we call nitrate ions minerals, which is called minerals. Okay, so how do plants use nitrates? Nitrate, as mentioned before, is essential for the plant, so it is called minerals. Let me ask you a question.
Can you go to the side, sir?
Can you repeat?
Oh, I'm good, sir.
All right. Okay. So let me wait a moment until you catch up. Okay. All right. Now, let me ask a question, Khalil. What are the parts of the plant?
Parts of the plant?
You give me two parts of the plant.
They're not the reproductive system of it, right, sir?
No, just the general parts.
Sir, the stem.
The stem. Right. Anything else?
The petals.
The petals. Okay. Anything else? You're forgetting the biggest part.
Leaf.
The leaf. Okay. One more. Starts with R.
The roots.
Right, the most important one. Let's highlight that one. So the roots now is directly responsible for taking in the minerals. So let's write that. The root is responsible for taking in the minerals. All right. One moment. Let me just ensure this is still recording. So Cameron, the class is recorded. Oh, he left. Okay, that's okay. Cause he said that he was having issues. One moment.
So why the camera left the call and the call is that over?
No, he said that he's watching the videos that I gave him, the videos that I made. He's watching them, and he can't stay in the class while watching the videos. So he's just gonna watch the videos and then come back later. Okay, so the roots is responsible for taking in the minerals. You got that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, this is also important. If the root is taking in the minerals, right? What is in those nitrates? So let's write that. What is inside the nitrates that make it useful? It's very important because if I'm taking in something, it has to be beneficial. What is inside of those nitrates that makes beneficial for the plant? Okay?
I don't know, sir.
All right. So it's just simply elements. Is the fact that elements are the building block, right, of every living organism. So if that plant is trying to grow, it's essentially trying to build itself, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we can then say the nitrates contain elements. Let me give you an example of an element. Nitrogen itself was an element. That just needed to be in a more useful state. Hence the term nitrate comes from nitrogen, to be used by the plant. And that's essentially covering every aspect of nitrogen cycle as it relates to how the plant uses it. All right? Okay. So, are you finishing the notes?
No, sir.
All right, let me give you a moment. Okay. Let me tell you something really cool. Because there's millions of types of trees, the chance of a plant existing where it uses nitrogen instead of nitrates actually exists. So let's write that. Because there are millions of different types of trees, the chance that there is a plant that uses nitrogen, the element itself that is not in any state, nitrogen rather than nitrates exist. And you eat this every day or some days. right? That plant is called legume. This plant is called legumes. Okay, let me go for a diagram for you. Legumes plant. Okay. All right, here's a diagram for you just to show you what legumes are. All right, there you go. Can you see the diagram?
Yes, sir. Can you scroll up, sir?
All right, there we go. Is that good? Okay. So those are examples of legumes. So you don't have to write down every single type. Just ensure that you have wheat, corn, bean, and peas. Wheat, corn, bean, peas. Those are the biggest forms of legumes.
So what was the B word, sir?
Beans, B-E. So let me write it down just to make sure. Examples: beans, corns, wheat, and peas. So these. So what did I say about these type of plants? What did I do?
They're legumes, sir.
Right? And what do legumes do with nitrogen and nitrates? Which one does it use? Nitrates or nitrogen?
Nitrates, sir.
Wait, no. Let's go back here.
Nitrogen.
Right, because there the chance exists for a plant that doesn't use nitrates because it can use nitrogen in its natural state, and that's legumes. But let's read a little bit more and get why. Right? So legumes, so write this for me. Legumes contain bacteria, such as everything, right? That takes in nitrogen for the plant. The reason why is because the plant has small swellings, and that's true. When you look at the peas, you see a little small indent in at the edge, right? In the roots, in the roots. The name, you can write this down, the name of those small swellings is officially called nodules. So because of these small swellings, right, the plant can use nitrogen instead of nitrates. So these nodules contain the nitrogen fixing bacteria. So in other words, it does not need any external organism to convert that nitrogen for it. The plant essentially can do it itself because it contains a nitrogen fixing bacteria. Very important that you know that. So the nodules contain a nitrogen fixing bacteria. All right. Now the name for this bacteria is kind of Latin. It's a Latin word, which it's fun to know. It's fun to know. Just it's fun to know. The name of this bacteria that has the superpower to just convert nitrogen is RHISZOBIA. And that will take us into the end of this section. So let's recap. Because there are a million types of trees, the chance that there's a plant that uses nitrogen rather than nitrates exists. And this plant type is called legumes, right? The definition of legumes is that it contains bacteria that takes in the nitrogen and fixes it inside the plant itself. And these are called Latin word Rhizobia. That's it. Okay. Now let me ask you a question, Khalil. Right? Do you know of any plant called humus or humus?
Humus?
Yeah. Have you ever heard of that word, humus?
Humus was like some element of soil, sir.
Right. Okay, so you do know about humus. So tell me what you know about it.
I think it's like some element of soil, sir, for plant to survive or something.
Okay. So let me give you a little hint. Okay. So essentially what humus is that whenever plants and animals die, they sort of get decomposed. Like you said, they get eaten down and broken down. And this combination of those materials that die, right, they form a little compound called humus. Right? And this humus is very nutritious, as you can tell, for the plant because it can absorb now nutrients. So let's write a definition for humus. Okay? So when plants and animals die, right? They are decomposed by bacteria. Right?
Okay, so which topic note do you want to talk about, sir?
So we're talking about humus, Humus, or hummus, whichever one you feel comfortable pronouncing it by. So the next topic after this is that we're gonna go through the food chain and the food web. But what I want you to see is that everything ends. And when plants.
Sir, but I did the food chain with Mr. White, sir.
Okay, so you're finishing the food chain. Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Good.
So we were doing the cycles today, the HSP class.
Okay, so the nitrogen cycle and so forth. So let's just finish up the nitrogen cycle then, because this is still under the nitrogen cycle, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. So the final topic then on the nitrogen cycle is that when plants and animals die, they get decomposed, as you said, right? By bacteria. Well, where does this decomposed material that gets broken down go to? To the soil,
sir?
Right. And if you have a lot of decomposed material in one location, they have a name for that. They call it humus or humus. I like saying hummus. So they call it hummus.
The appropriate name was humus.
Humus, right? Exactly. But some people, and I kind of relate to it, feel like pronouncing it a hummus gives a better name, but humus is the correct terminology. So we're just saying that whenever you have plants and animals that die and go into the soil, if they have a large section of those dead organisms, they're called humus. Right? Okay. This is nutritious, and it's very weird to say nutritious in that sentence, but this is packed with nutrients for any organism, well, for plant organisms to grow. And why do we say that? Because it's containing a word called M. Like when the plant is making its produce, he puts something to make it grow. It is called. Remember the word, Kyle? Manure.
Oh.
Right. So humus in this term is nature's own version of manure. So when plants and animals die, they are decomposed by bacteria, and this is called humus. Okay? Now, One last thing before we finish right here is that the humus, the soil takes the humus and converts it right? The soil takes the humus and converts it to nitrates. So you see how everything is a full circle? Nitrates. Wait, my bad. Nitrites. Nitrites. And then finally nitrates. So there's a small difference between nitrates and nitrites, right? And at your level, you don't essentially need to know that depth of knowledge. But essentially, even when there isn't a direct association with nitrates in terms of animals dying, if we have a lot of things decomposing in one area, the soil itself will provide nitrites, right, from a material called humus. Understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So now we're on to the last topic in this section, Khalil. And that is going to be me asking you, okay, what do you think, or let me ask you, what type of bacteria? So this is the question section. Let's answer some questions. Question section. What type of bacteria in the soil takes in nitrogen and build it up in their own bodies? All right. You're going to answer that question for me based on the notes you have taken. Right? And the next part is.
Should I rejoin when the timer ends, sir?
Yeah, rejoins. And then one more question before the timer ends. What type of bacteria as well converts nitrites to nitrates? So those are your two questions. So you're going to rejoin, right? And read your notes and answer those questions. All right. Okay. Now I have a diagram for the nitrogen cycle and I'll quickly go through it. So we're going to go through the steps of the nitrogen cycle. So the last topic on the nitrogen cycle is going to be called the steps. So here, the final topic. Oh, my bad. There you go. Steps in nitrogen cycle. So that's the last topic to understand visually how the nitrogen cycle plays out. So step one. My bad.
So what was question two, sir?
Here you go. What type of bacteria converts nitrites to nitrates? In other words, where is the bacteria located? Okay. Now, the steps in the nitrogen cycle is what I want us to go through. All right. So step one. All right. Are you there? Let me give you 1 minute to reach. So just research quickly and find your answers, all right, before the timer expires, so we can go into steps in nitrogen cycle.